Gnome. Blessings to all of you, my fellow Gnomians, wherever you are and however you're spending today. Some of you might be celebrating Easter with family, some might be honoring the turning of the season, and some of you might just be here for the gnomes and the good vibes. However you show up, you are welcome here. Now, originally, I thought this episode might focus on Easter itself, a deep dive into the pagan roots, the Christian evolution, springtime symbolism, all that sort of good stuff. And honestly, from a search engine optimization perspective, that would have been smart and a great way to kind of pull in some more people into our mix. But this week, something happened that felt a little bit more pressing, more important, and way more aligned with one of the core values of the Church of Gnome. A simple meme was posted in our Facebook group, just a gnome hugging a cross. No big backstory, no preaching, but the reaction, it was immediate. Some folks were upset, comments started rolling in. I didn't join this group to see Christian stuff. This is supposed to be a pagan group, or just keep it Gnomean. And I get it, because belief is very personal. It's sensitive, it's sacred. Many people in this community come from spiritual paths that have historically been silenced, mocked, or colonized by other traditions. Some people carry very real wounds. And at the same time, some people just discovered a new way of seeing the world through the lens of a garden gnome. And that's beautiful too. So instead of doing an Easter episode, I want to talk about something a little bit more foundational. Right at the top of the Church of Gnome website, there's a proverb, and it says, "The light of one lantern does not diminish another, it only makes the path brighter." So that isn't there by accident, and it's not just decoration. It's kind of our North Star. It's our challenge. It's our invitation. The Church of Gnome isn't here to tell you what to believe. It isn't here to build an echo chamber where everyone agrees on everything or tiptoe around what's real for them. It's here to create a different kind of space, one where someone can share their reverence for Jesus and someone else can post a photo of a mossy statue that they believe literally guards their home. One where we can say, "That's what lights my lantern," without trying to blow out someone else's. And it's not easy. It requires trust, patience, and a little humor. And I get how weird it is to have me saying this, because if you knew me back when I was a little bit younger and just screaming some guttural vocals in a brutal death metal band, you'd probably never imagine the day that I'd be here on the internet defending Christian memes. But the universe has a funny way of stretching us, and somehow here we are. So here's the truth. Religion has been the heart of conflict for thousands of years. Wars, persecution, division, people have lost their lives, their lineage over belief. But, hey, how about we just don't repeat that story? What if we build something a little bit different? What if a gnome-led spiritual movement became one of the new places where people could actually come together because they believe differently, but are still willing to listen to one another? We're not trying to flatten everything into sameness. This isn't spiritual beige paint. It's a lantern-lit path made of wildly different lights, and every one of them matters. And the crazy part is, somehow it is working. The community is growing super fast, like thousands and thousands of new members a month fast. And yet, even with all that growth, the overwhelming majority of what I see in our spaces is kindness, curiosity, thoughtful discussion, absurd joy, and some pretty solid memes. We had another moment of clarity this week in the form of a poll that I posted in the group. And I asked people pretty much, how do you view gnomes? Are they real elemental spiritual beings? Are they just symbolic? Are they purely just fun? And over 1,000 of you voted on it, and about 70% said that you do believe in gnomes as actual entities of some sort. And that's pretty incredible. I think that tells me that we're not just playing here, we're building something deeply felt and one rooted in nature, mystery, a little bit of absurdity. But I also want to make it very clear that the 30% that said that they're just symbols or they're here for the fun, like that's fine too. You belong here too. Because again, the light of one lantern does not diminish another. It only makes the path brighter. So today, in this episode, we're going to talk about what that means in real life. We'll explore why belief systems have caused so much division, why I'm trying to make this space different, and how we can keep walking forward together without losing the unique light each of us brings. So before we dive in, if you haven't yet, go get ordained and become a member at churchofgnome.org. It's free, and we have an absolutely amazing community being built up around us. So you can join the forum on the website, the Facebook group. There's thousands and thousands of people joining every month. And the kind words and support that all of you have been giving me lately is truly inspirational. And so I can't express enough gratitude for what all of you are helping this space become. So let's dive into it, and let's, sit with that proverb for a moment. The light of one lantern does not diminish another. It only makes the path brighter. It's simple, but when you reflect on it, I hope that it can be powerful, because we live in a world where a lot of people are convinced that for their light to matter, someone else's has to be snuffed out. The truth is a competition, that there's only so much space on the stage, that if you're right, then I must be wrong. But light doesn't work that way, not spiritually, not emotionally, and not communally, at least in my opinion. If you've ever walked through the woods at night with a lantern or even just a flashlight, you know how it feels when someone else joins you with their own light. Suddenly the trail becomes clearer, the shadows shrink back, you see more, not less. That's the vision behind this proverb. That's the vision behind the Church of Gnome. We're not here to tell people what lantern to carry or that you have to actually believe in gnomes. We're here to say, bring it, share it, light your way, and help someone else see a little bit further too. Maybe your lantern is lit by Jesus. Maybe yours is lit by the old gods. Maybe it's lit by your own quiet intuition or the giggle of a garden gnome. Whatever it is, it's welcome here. Because the more we let each other shine, the richer the path becomes. Now, that doesn't mean that anything goes. There's a difference between sharing your light and swinging it in someone else's face. If someone enters the space saying, "My light is the only one that matters and everyone else is lost," or "My view of gnomes is the only correct view," that's not light. That's glare, that's ego, that's something entirely else. But when someone says, "This is what guides me, this is how I make sense of mystery," and does it with humility and not superiority, to me that's sacred. And that's what this space is meant to protect. See, a lot of spiritual communities set up walls. This is Christian, this is pagan, this is New Age or atheist. And if you don't fit in that box, then there's not any space for you. But the Church of Gnome isn't a box. It's a campfire. It's a gathering place. You don't have to believe in the same thing as the person sitting next to you. You just have to let them speak and listen with enough openness that their lantern adds something to your view, even if it's just for a moment. Because even if you don't agree with their path, you might still see something in their light that helps you better walk your own. And so when I say this proverb isn't just decorative, it is because I mean that. It's how we build this church, and it's how we protect its spirit. And in the world we live in, a world that can seem like it's full of division, outrage, and noise, this is kind of a radical movement of putting those differences aside in a sense and being a space where people with different views can speak openly and safely. And so I hope that this is something that we can keep doing, especially as we grow, because with every new member that comes in is a new lantern, and with every new lantern, the path can get brighter. So, for most of human history, belief can be a dangerous ground. And that's not just in a metaphorical sense. People have gone to war over whose God is the right God. Entire cultures have been wiped out because they honored a different pantheon, followed different rhythms, and worshiped under different names. Even today, people are attacked and killed for simply existing outside of somebody else's religious comfort zone. The right to believe, the right not to believe, the right to change your beliefs, these things are still controversial in many parts of the world. So, when I say that this space is radical, I'm not just being poetic. In a world that's built on religious boundaries, building a community like this one that says, come as you are, believe what you believe, share it with respect and curiosity, that's not a small thing. It's quite a quiet rebellion. And the truth is, even people who think they've left religion behind still sometimes carry those battle instincts with them. We all have it in us, the temptation to draw lines, to protect our beliefs by pushing others away. Sometimes that instinct comes from trauma. Sometimes it comes from pride. Sometimes it just comes from fear, and it makes sense. If you've had to fight to reclaim your path, if you've had your beliefs mocked, colonized, or dismissed, you're going to be sensitive when something that is different shows up in your space. And I get that. I honor those feelings. But what I believe is that if we want to break that cycle, if you want to have something that's different than what's been done for thousands of years, we have to make room for the lanterns of others, even if they once looked like torches that burned down the villages of your ancestors. We have to make room without letting ourselves be dominated again, but also without becoming the next generation of gatekeepers. And it's not easy, it's not comfortable, but that's what makes it so powerful. In the Church of Gnome, I'm not asking you to abandon what you believe. I don't ask you to water it down. I just ask you to practice holding space for others. To say, this is what lights my path, and even though yours looks different, I'll walk beside you. This is the difference between belief as a battlefield or belief as a bridge. And honestly, we really are doing a great job of it. Outside of this one little flare up that happened this week, the energy in this community has been so overwhelmingly generous and kind. And that's rare. There's some of you who have emotionally opened up about, something that's happened in your life that, is sad and hard. And hundreds of people flood to it to, share a piece of their heart, to wish everyone well, to, in those moments, put everything aside and just see each other as humans or friends that are in need of someone else. And those are the moments where I've really seen this community shine in the best possible ways. So let's keep doing that. Let's keep building something where belief isn't a war, it's a gift. Something where the weird and the sacred can live side by side. Something where you can talk about Odin or Jesus or mushroom spirits or your grandma's witchery and be met with curiosity and not condemnation, because that's how we break this cycle, and that's how we keep the path open for the ones that are still trying to find their way. So let's go a little bit into the meme. A gnome hugging a cross. That's it. It wasn't some fire and brimstone post. It wasn't a sermon. It wasn't telling people what to believe. Just a gnome and a cross. Symbols held together with love. And yet, the comment section did get a little bit loud. And I'm not bringing any of this up to call out anyone, or I'm not interested in shame or blame, but I think that it revealed something important about where we are as a community and how easy it is to slip into fear or frustration when something unfamiliar shows up in a space or something that you didn't expect. Some of the comments are, I didn't come here to see Christian posts, or this is a pagan group, all these sort of things. But the thing is, the Church of Gnome isn't a pagan group. It isn't a Christian group. It isn't atheist or agnostic or esoteric or mystical. It's all of it and it's none of it. It's a space where all those lanterns are welcome to glow, so long as they're held with kindness and not used as weapons. There's a line that I want to draw here because it matters. There's a big difference between sharing your beliefs and preaching them. Sharing says, this is something that's meaningful to me, and preaching is telling others that it should be meaningful to them. And I know that line can get blurry, it can feel subjective, and I know I'm not always going to get it right when it comes to trying to moderate a group that's growing by the thousands at a rapid pace and trying to keep it so I'm not putting out anyone else's light or diminishing how others are feeling about what's being said or posted, yet maintaining that balance of kind of keeping the group in the direction that it was intended. And I know I'm not always going to get it right, and the other moderators aren't always going to get it right. 'Cause what I'm trying to do with this is it's a very delicate balance, and I understand that. So what I'm kind of saying is, if you want to talk about Jesus, talk about Jesus. If you want to post about the Norse gods or the moon cycles, the Fae, the mushroom spirits, the void of nothingness, do it. Just do it from your heart and not from a pulpit. Do it as a way to start conversations, a way to help others open up and, share their reflections on it. That's kind of what I'm aiming for here, is with all these diverse beliefs, is your beliefs all do matter. And I'm hoping that we can share them in a way that, is, just conversation starters, And so that's, if you see something that isn't part of your spiritual language, maybe a gnome, maybe a cross, just pause for a moment before reacting and ask yourself, is this post really trying to convert me, or is someone just showing what lights their path? Because maybe it's the latter one, and, we can honor that without having to adopt it. Or maybe we can say, that's not my thing, but I wish you well. And if we're going to keep this community healthy, especially as it grows, we have to cultivate that mindset. We have to become people who are curious before we are critical, and people who add to the conversation instead of tearing it down. People who remember that one meme isn't a takeover, it's just a tiny light. And sometimes the most Gnomean thing that we can do is just shrug and smile and say, not my vibe, but I'm glad it brings you peace. That's, to me, what inclusivity looks like here. And that's how we can protect this movement as something that's different than a lot of what else is going on out in the world. And so back to that poll that we did, and I'd say that's proof that we really are doing something truly unique and different here. And the question of, how do you personally view gnomes? Are they spiritual or elemental beings? Are they symbolic or archetypal? Are they just whimsical and fun, more than a vibe than a being? And I wasn't really sure what to expect, but over 1,000 of you voted, and that alone is pretty awesome to get over 1,000 people to, feel strongly enough to partake in that poll. And yeah, about 70% of you marked that you lean towards believing gnomes as real in some sort of form, whether it be spiritual or, elemental, energetic, interdimensional, insert 20 billion options. And that's wild and beautiful because we're not talking about some abstract deity handed down through institutions. We're talking about gnomes, those little pointy hatted, often misunderstood guardians of gardens, forest boundaries, and mystery. And yeah, about 70% of this community sees them as more than myth. And that tells me too that, this really isn't just a joke for people. And that's what I was hoping for with this community. I know I put a lot of not serious stuff in it, especially all over the website. And I'm just so glad that most of the community is able to see that, though at times it seems like I'm being so unserious or taking things so lightheartedly, that, there really is something meaningful going on behind it. And that's why I always use the phrase that the Church of Gnome is blending the profound and the absurd, and how those are two, sides of the same coin. And the fact that, yeah, about 30% of you view gnomes more symbolically or just here for the humor or the charm. And that's great too, because there's plenty of that. They can all go hand in hand. Because whether you see gnomes as literal or metaphorical, sacred, silly, one thing ties us all together, and that's there's something about them that opens us up, that softens us, and that reconnects us to mystery, nature, wonder, and community. And that's what makes the Church of Gnome work. It's not about everyone seeing the same thing the same way. It's about what happens when we share what we see and stay open to what others are bringing to the table. You can believe gnomes are earth elementals who whisper through tree roots. You can believe they're psychological archetypes that represent boundary keeping. You can believe that they're hilarious, tiny little hat wearing tricksters who are here to make the world more fun. And in the Church of Gnome, all those lights are welcome. Because again, the light of one lantern does not diminish another. It only makes the path brighter. And the more varied our lights, the more terrain that we can illuminate. So whether you're here for the spiritual insight, playful absurdity, deep mythological roots, or just a sense of connection, you're part of this path and you're holding one of the lanterns. And I am glad that you're here. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with an opportunity and a responsibility, because what we're doing here isn't easy. Creating a space that welcomes radically different beliefs, spiritual languages, cultural experiences, and still manages to make us feel peaceful and joyful. It's a tightrope walk, what we're doing here. And somehow it's happening and it's being pulled off. So sure, every now and then there might be a little flare up, a meme, a misunderstanding, a debate that gets a little bit too heated, and that's to be expected in any community, especially one growing as fast as this. But if you zoom out, you'll see something pretty extraordinary. People showing up with sincerity, people listening to beliefs they've maybe never encountered before, people laughing together, blessing each other, sharing lanterns. And I don't take any of that for granted. Now, as this community keeps expanding, that balance might get trickier to maintain. We'll have more perspectives, more ideas, more spiritual languages mixed into the same pot. And I want to be really clear that that is not a threat to what we're building. It's a gift. And so I just ask that, this is something that you carry with you. And when you post, you share it from your heart, not your podium. Let your light shine, but don't swing it like a spotlight in someone else's face. Trust that your truth will land with the people it's meant to reach, and even if not everyone resonates with it. And when you comment in a way that builds, not breaks. Add your view, expand the conversation, bring your own lantern to the trail instead of trying to blow someone else's out. Ask yourself, how can I help make this path brighter for everyone, not just more comfortable for myself? Because that's how we stay Gnomean, not by narrowing down what means, but by staying open and open to the mystery that brought us here in the first place. And it's been pretty magical watch that happen. It's in the post where someone shares a gnome story from childhood and dozens of strangers are jumping in. It's the pictures of altars and gardens, and so many of you posting pictures of wearing gnome hats in quite unexpected places. It's about people just showing up as themselves without needing to explain or justify why their path matters. And it's in the trust you've placed in this movement, in this weird and wonderful church built on mushrooms, mystery, and the belief that humor and holiness are not opposites. We're not always going to get it right, but if we can keep coming back to this idea that our lights are not in competition, they're in communion, we'll be able to walk further together than any one path could have taken us alone. So, as we come to an end of this episode, I really do want to, thank all of you. The whole thing, the Church of Gnome, this podcast, the community, the absurdity, the beauty of all of it. It started as quite a strange little idea I had about a year and a half ago. A spark, a joke with some depth, a vision I couldn't fully yet explain, but, really felt a calling to follow. And now here we are, thousands of people across the world joining together under this wild, gnome-hatted lantern of belief and curiosity and laughter. So I can't really ever fully explain what that feels like for me to see this grow into what it's becoming. So every day I see your messages, I see your posts, your comments, people sharing their stories, their grief, their wonder, and it's just so amazing. The people, all of you reaching out, saying that this gave me something that I didn't know I needed. And it, can get me a little emotional sometimes. Never on camera because I'm a man. But no, I know what it feels like to, sometimes not really know where you fit. And it feels like to have questions that maybe can't be asked in traditional spaces. And seeing this become home for people, it really does mean a lot to me. The kind words, the support, everyone constantly offering to help are very encouraging to me on these crazy days of trying to find balance in my own life of how to maintain and keep this thing growing while also managing my other responsibilities in life. So I do thank you all sincerely. And so as we wrap up this Easter Sunday episode, a day that for many represents rebirth, renewal, light breaking through darkness, I just want to remind you that whatever you believe, whatever lantern you carry, you're part of something here. Your light adds something that only you can bring. So let's keep walking this path together. Let's keep laughing, learning, and lifting one another up. Let's keep it Gnomean, equal parts sacred and silly, ancient and absurd. And above all, let's keep the lights on for each other. So gnome blessings, and I'll see you all next time.